Hey Geneseo, it got spooky around here last weekend, and we've got a special guest for you. Stay put. Hey Geneseo, welcome to Geneseo Now. I'm your host, Dalkin D. Moranville, and today we've got a very special guest in the studio with us. He's a former Geneseo resident. He's been an actor in Hollywood since the 1960s, and he's right here with us today. And I want to welcome Butch Patrick. Butch, thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, well, this is one of my favorite towns in the country. I used to live here, you know that.
You lived here, and if you wouldn't mind telling us, where was your residence when you lived in Geneseo?
Right there on State Street, right? Kind of kitty corner from the Geneseo Hotel, above the, I believe it's the Four Seasons now. Is that what it is, the Four Seasons? Yeah, above the Four Seasons. Really interesting building that has two sort of like extensions off the wall with the bay windows that you can see out of. That was my grandma's place, and I lived with her in the winter of '63, spring of '64.
And that was prior to you getting the casting job for the Munsters.
Exactly. I was living here. My mom, the backstory was I was living in Los Angeles. Like back then, everybody had to be near Hollywood because that's where all the movies were made. And my mom married a baseball player with the Los Angeles Angels who was traded to the Washington Senators. And during that period, when everybody went to the East Coast, my grandma moved to Geneseo. She was already living here, I guess, and I basically was dropped off with my grandma to spend. I went to school in the 5th grade with the St. Malachy's, and it was during that period that my agent called me about this TV show called The Munsters, and they were looking for a kid, and she got me a screen test, and I left Geneseo to go do The Munsters, and by the time I was done, my grandma had left Geneseo, so that was the only really period that I lived here, but it was a great 6 months.
So when you arrived yesterday, did you make the trip downtown? Did it look any different? What things have changed at all, and did it look the same as it did when you lived in town?
Well, I got to tell you, I kind of cheated. I've been here maybe 5 times over the years. Whenever I would travel across country, I'd always try to stop and just see the park and go down Main Street and see the changes. And it's changed a lot. It has, but State Street is pretty much solid. There's a few key things that I recognized immediately, and then there's a few things not so much. But yes, it's definitely bigger. You know, you got a few more stoplights.
Yeah. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, we had 1, now you got 4.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
So we've got Spook the Loop coming up tomorrow, and you're going to be a big part of that. How did all that come about?
Sheila reached out to me, who is in charge, and also, well, maybe not in charge. This gentleman over here Zach might take issue with that. But between Zach and Sheila, they reached out to me about this car-related event they had. And they were they do a wonderful job with awareness for the Geneseo community. And they thought it would be fun to maybe tie me into that and shoot the loop to spook the loop and add in a little dimension of a werewolf named Eddie who once lived in Geneseo, Butch Patrick, and poof, here we are.
And here you are, and tomorrow you're going to be doing some appearances, right? And you're going to be guiding the cars through town and in your own vehicle, right?
Well, my vehicle is a single-seater. My Munster coach isn't going to be completed until next year, but I did bring my chopper, and I'll be leading the parade or the car line up with my chopper. My Dragula will be on display. We'll fire that up for people to hear, but it's not really a drivable car unless you're at the drag strip. We have down on State Street, there was a whole bunch of people participating. There's some businesses that have got some really cool Munster-related Welcome Butch Patrick werewolves, and they're making gift bags for the kids and puppets and this and that. So I think the community is going to really come out in force to have a good time for all kids. You know, it's not like they say at Disneyland, kids of all ages, and that pretty much applies to the Munsters.
So let's talk about the Munsters for a bit. What was your experience like on that show? And it's what you're most known for, but you're an actor and you've had a lot of acting jobs. What was your Munsters experience like?
It was wonderful, in a word, but it was funny. It was 2 years, and we were surrounded by the best people in Hollywood at their craft, from the special effects people to the makeup people to the customized car builder, George Barris. And the neat part was the Universal Studios was known as the Monster Studio in the 30s and 40s. They were very, very good at doing the old horror movies, and they applied that knowledge and that look to the Munsters. But the Munsters was produced by the people that did Leave It to Beaver. So they had this very good angle of making kid-friendly scripts with adults, and Leave It to Beaver was like the first TV show that was actually done from a kid's point of view, where the kids were the primary and then the adults were secondary. And they applied that to the Munsters, where Herman was like a big kid. And luckily for me, Eddie became a knowledgeable child, and the two of us equaled off in the middle, where I was the student sometimes and I was the teacher sometimes, and then Herman back and forth. So me and Fred had a really good relationship, as I did with everybody else. But it was a unique blend of everything that really worked.
Yeah, it was a great show, and watching it as a kid, you don't realize that it was a comedy and that Herman Munster has no idea about his outward appearance. And it still is a great show, and it was so well produced, it was so well written, and all around it's just a great family show.
Back then, a lot of shows in that period were just very well done. There wasn't computer graphics. It was just characters, and you think of the Andy Mayberries and the Hillbillies and Lucy, and there's these, even the Honeymooners, just very basic 4 actors interacting, making you laugh. Subject matter was harmless, and it was very clean and PG and all that kind of stuff, or G-rated for that matter. But the Munsters, the main thing I get from people is it was a believable family unit. The structure, even though they were Frankenstein, Dracula, this and that, you never ever thought of Herman Munster as Frankenstein. He was Herman Munster. Yeah. And that was the beauty of it. You immediately related to the family unit, and you never thought of him as scary or monstrous or anything but lovable, likable, and believable.
Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow we'll be out at Spook the Loop taking photos and shooting video, and that will be coming up next. And I want to say a very special thank you to Butch Patrick for coming in and spending some time with us today. Flags fly on Memorial Day, July 4th, and Veterans Day.